Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I want to do a little offbeat video today. Not necessarily specifically pertaining to prepping, but it's a topic which may perhaps catch the interest of a wider audience. And it's about the topic of building muscle. Goes without saying why you should want to build not only muscle, but strength, endurance, speed, agility, dexterity, and various art forms. But building muscle is something that is very difficult to do. Now, if you look at prisoners, they tend to have a larger amount of lean mass, and they tend to have more muscle, essentially. Now, it's difficult to get steroids in prison on a regular basis, so it's not that they're all juicing. And I'm going to tell you why once and for all, because I see a lot of rumors and ideas circulating around the internet as to why this might be. Some of those ideas are that they have higher testosterone levels. That's the sort of main one. Other ones, of course, are that they're using anabolic steroids in prison. But there is one commonly overlooked fact, and that's the effect of environment on testosterone levels. People usually attribute, people who have large muscle, they usually attribute it to genetics. But science tells us that that's not the only factor. In fact, there are a lot of other factors which will contribute to testosterone production in men. And the short of it is, if you hang around a bunch of weaklings, your testosterone is going to be lower because it doesn't have to be higher. There's a documentary called The Testosterone Factor. I believe it's a National Geographic documentary. And they did a study with certain type of fish. I think it was cichlids. And depending on the fish that were in close proximity, so there could be 4 or 5 types of cichlids. One of them would change colors depending on the hierarchy and depending on which fish were present in the water with that fish at the same time. So the fish, naturally, like most creatures, assembled themselves into an alpha, beta, theta, delta hierarchy of sorts. And you could take the alpha fish out. When they took the alpha fish out that changed color to become the alpha to signify that it was the alpha male, another fish would take on that role and become the alpha, and its testosterone levels would increase. So this tells us that environment plays a huge role in the production of testosterone. Now, when you're in an environment where your life is threatened, necessarily your testosterone will need to raise so that you can be more aggressive, so that you can retain more of your lean mass, because lean mass is going to be what allows you to, not the only thing, but it's definitely going to be the foundation of what allows you to be stronger, faster, and more agile. Fat storing is not a priority when you're in prison. Now, one other factor which will come into play is that typically prisoners are on what they call a caloric deficit. So they don't have the amount of food and calories and protein necessary in order to build this muscle. And this is precisely why it's a testosterone factor at work. Because if you look at bodybuilders and the amount of protein and calories they take in, they should be able to build a lot more muscle than these guys in prison, but they don't necessarily, because the guys in prison have that fear factor present, which is allowing them to produce more testosterone, which of course leads to the production of more mass and the shredding of body fat off their bodies. So this is a major factor. If you want to build muscle, don't surround yourself with a bunch of weaklings. If you want to get stronger, don't go to a gym, that's like an average Joe gym. Go somewhere where there's a lot of grunting and groaning. Go do some hard ass work with some tough people if you want to improve at anything in life, not just building muscle, but that's namely what this video pertains to. Otherwise, you're a big fish in a small pond. They've done studies to show that once a record was broken, once somebody had achieved a certain level in a sport, that people once thought unachievable, everybody else would start breaking the same record. And whether that's due to people seeing it as, okay, now it's possible, now we can do this, whether it's a psychological thing or not, or whether it's what some people have termed the collective energy of the sport, there's momentum that happens there. So you need to be surrounding yourself with people who are going hard if you want to improve yourself. You can't be the top dog and, expect to keep improving at a steady pace. So if you find yourself plateauing in life, surround yourself with people who are stronger than you, who perhaps even instill a bit of fear within you. That's how you're going to grow. And that's why these guys in prison are so yoked up, not because they're just, have naturally higher testosterone levels, but because they have no choice but to either get jacked and have a greater chance of survival, or get fat and be somebody's bitch. That's all there is to it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you guys think otherwise, then by all means, shoot me your rationale and give me some studies perhaps to back up what you say, because based on my research, that's the only plausible possible solution as to why these guys are so jacked. They're on a caloric deficit. Most of them don't even have weights. So the muscles being built by very low level resistance training, which is not using heavy weights and stuff like that. It's mostly high rep endurance calisthenic type workouts. And I've been working out for nearly 4 years now. And I've seen people who have been also working out for 4 years, and they've made absolutely no progress because they do not push themselves beyond the threshold required in order for their body to respond and improve. So don't be pissing in the wind if you're in the gym or if you're at work or whatever the case might be. However it is that you're getting in shape, you need to push yourself beyond the threshold. You need to feel some pain, not that Snap City type pain, as Twin Muscle Workout would say. But you need to get to that point where you can't go any further. You need to go to failure at least a few times every workout. You need to go to a point where you cannot go any further. That is essentially what is going to make you stronger, smarter, wiser in any aspect of life. You push yourself beyond yourself to transform yourself. That's all I got today. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.